talk today about one of my biggest failings, and it is something not that I fail in doing so much that I fail doing it, as a thing that I fail thinking about far too often, and it is this idea of revenge. That's the subject for today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 20th of December of 2021. Thank you for everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thanks for coming along today. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, the subject for today is revenge. I want to talk about this subject because Dinesh D'Souza recently addressed it from the perspective of Shakespearean plays, but I want to address it just from my personal viewpoint and a little bit from how maybe Christians ought to be looking at this idea. Okay, let me go ahead and go through my notes, and I'm going to have a passage of Scripture which you can turn off if you don't happen to be a Christian, or you may find it interesting one way or another, but it's there, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen when I actually go through it. But I need to get through my notes because they're kind of long today, partially because of that passage of Scripture. How true is it that many folks' favorite movies and television shows hold that distinction because of somebody, maybe a group in many cases, getting their comeuppance? Many have seen that movie franchise that a huge number count a staple for the Christmas season, in which an off-duty police officer goes around killing off baddies who take over an office building in which his estranged wife works. Excuse me. To some degree, pretty much all recent action movies work on a similar premise. It's more or less always accounted justified revenge. When you consider that a pretty large part of the audience for such things are Christian, at least here in the United States, that's probably not true throughout the world, you have to ask yourself a question. Is it reasonable for good people, particularly Christians, but others as well, to seek retribution when wronged? It's at this point that many respectable folks feel a twinge. I'm pretty sure they know the answer that's coming. Of course it's not proper. Of course that's not proper. For just a second, let's forget about the more serious forms of getting back at others. We can include things here like killing folks or causing them serious bodily harm in the list. In fact, it's possible to tone things down to ideas like tit for tat on activities that barely harm others at all. Most hawkish Christians like to say things like, God doesn't want us to be doormats. Is that accurate? Let's take a look at what the most sacred of texts for Christians has to say about that. And obviously we're talking about the Bible here. In the interest of time, we'll use just one statement. I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the screen. And it is Matthew 10:16 through 24. In case you're interested, I'm going to use the King James Version. You don't have to, obviously. It says this, Behold, I send you forth sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to I want to make sure I get this right, up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues, and ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what ye shall speak. And now I'm continuing this for a reason, so bear with me. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And brother shall deliver up brother to death, and the father, the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. But when they shall persecute you in this city, beat 'em up. No, wait. Flee ye into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. And I put that last piece in there for definite reason. The point is, Jesus was nailed to a cross, boys and girls. This is a guy who had every reason to seek revenge if revenge was a reasonable thing. And he says, you're not above him. To begin with, let's ignore the idea, what would Jesus do, since in this instance it's not per se what he did, but what he told his disciples to do. Do you honestly believe he intended that to stop? On top of that, where do you see revenge in this passage? And this is for possibly, I think, definitely myself, the most important thing you can imagine the preaching of the gospel. Does it seem like revenge is a worthwhile, reasonable thing in any other context? I don't tend to believe so. Remember that revenge and justice are not the same thing. We'll get into that in a moment. Now, I've completed my notes, and as I said, I knew this was going to take me a little longer than my average notes because of that piece of scripture that I read you. But here's what I want for you to understand and what I want for you to consider. Literally, if you look at that passage of scripture, he doesn't say, beat him up, move on, like I said earlier on when I read the scripture. He doesn't say beat him up and move on. He said, flee from that place and go to another. That's what he said. He didn't, at any point, he said he admonished his disciples to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. When was the last time you saw a dove exact revenge? When was the last time you saw that? Do you think that was intended to stop when his disciples stopped doing what they were doing? I don't tend to believe that's true. So if you're a Christian, I think you've got built-in reason to not be vengeful in your action. Now, I said earlier on that I wanted to talk about a particular concept, and the concept was that of justice as opposed to revenge. I believe sometimes justice looks like revenge, even though it's not. It is justice, and I believe that you can make the mistake of seeing that to be the case, right? I think that, funnily enough, in the movie that I cited earlier on, where I believe was more frontier justice than anything else, it wasn't per se revenge, right? In a sense, you could argue that it was, just for the fact that the guys had done what they did. But it happened that the individual in question was a police officer, and he was put in imminent harm situations in multiple instances. And so, funnily enough, I think maybe you could argue that I've chosen the wrong thing to talk about when I use that particular movie. But the reality is, lots of times revenge is the thing that we're talking about and that people are using, and it's not justice. It doesn't matter whether, in a sense, the people who were involved got justice as a result of the revenge. The reality is, revenge is not a called for thing for Christians. And I argue that for civilized, sane, sensible people, revenge is not the thing that's argued. Keeping other people from being hurt is not revenge. It is not necessarily even justice. It is protection of the vulnerable and the weak. And that's another thing entirely. If you see a widow being beaten and having her money taken by a bad guy, and if you believe that she's in danger of imminent death, maybe it's a thing to do to step in and stop the beating or whatever, and possibly even to dispatch the people who are doing it. I know lots of people who would argue in the name of Christianity that that's unreasonable, and I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time fighting against that idea myself, that it's unreasonable to kill people even when they're going to take out others that maybe are innocents. That having been said, I understand that a whole lot better than I understand revenge. That's not revenge. That's trying to keep innocents from being harmed. That, to me, is a totally different thing, and it's one of the reasons that I have an easier time dealing with what, say, for example, police officers do, than people whose cousin got killed and went out, sought out the people who killed him, and dispatched that individual. Now, there's a difference again between revenge and justice, and I point out that if somebody's cousin gets killed and that person goes and gathers the evidence to make it so that the court case against the people who did the killing is a good case and causes those people to deal with justice, I don't really have a problem with that idea. Okay, I knew this one was going to run long. I'm not surprised by that. I just want to say, I don't think revenge is a good thing, and I think that we need to seek to not work in that mode. I don't think it's a good thing for me or for anybody else, and I'm not saying I'm better at dealing with it than anybody else. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 20th of December, 2021. Again, getting closer to Christmas, closer to that end of the year and beginning of the new year, beginning of the work week today for most people. Tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 21st of December of 2021. Getting closer to the middle of the week, amazingly enough. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for having come here today. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can hit that boxing glove to give me a rumble. You can hit the plus to give me positive feedback if you want to do that on Rumble. You can hit the minus if you want to tell me that I didn't do something good, meaningful, or worthwhile. You can give me a thumbs up on YouTube. That would be a like. You can give me a thumbs down or a dislike also on YouTube if you don't like the content that you see me putting out there. The subject for today has been revenge, and tomorrow we're going to talk about a subject that I termed as a question: cluelessness or malice. Hope you're willing and able to tune in tomorrow on the Daily Summation. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything is going well for you. And as I say, I hope I will see you again on Tuesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, December 20th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.